The cheers turned to stunned silence as the head judge snatched the gleaming trophy from James's hands and announced over the microphone that Alex and James were disqualified from the National Couples Dance Championship for violating the organization's traditional family values clause. Just moments earlier, their passionate routine had earned them the title and a standing ovation from thousands in the Chicago arena. But now security was escorting them off stage amid whispers and cameras flashing. Alex felt his stomach drop, his hands still intertwined with James's as the crowd's reaction shifted from admiration to confusion and even some boos. "This can't be happening," Alex muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the chaos. James squeezed his hand tighter, his jaw set in determination, but Alex could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. They had worked so hard for this. For months, they had practiced in their small apartment in Chicago, perfecting every step, every lift, every look that told their story of love through movement. Alex, a 28-year-old marketing coordinator with a conservative family back in Iowa, had always been cautious about public displays, but James, his 31-year-old dance instructor partner, had convinced him that this competition could be their breakthrough, not just for the prize money but to show the world that love is love. The competition had been open to all couples, or so they thought. No mention of traditional in the rules they signed. But now, as they were ushered into a back room, a representative handed them a letter citing an anonymous complaint and a clause buried in the fine print about moral standards. The next few days were a blur of media calls and social media storms. Some supporters called it blatant discrimination, while others echoed the organizers' stance. Alex's phone buzzed constantly with texts from his parents, who had only recently started to accept his relationship with James. "We told you this would happen," his father wrote in one terse message. James tried to stay positive, suggesting they fight it, but Alex felt the weight of years of hiding who he was crashing down. That night, in their apartment overlooking the lake, James pulled Alex close on the couch, not saying a word at first, just holding him as the reality sank in. The trophy they had held so proudly sat on the coffee table like a mocking reminder. "We'll get through this," James whispered finally, his voice steady but his eyes tired. Alex nodded, but inside he wondered if their love had just cost them everything they had built together. As the weeks passed, the organization formally demanded the return of the title and the $50,000 prize. Alex and James consulted a lawyer named Elena Rodriguez, a sharp woman who specialized in discrimination cases. During their first meeting in her downtown office, she reviewed the documents with a serious expression. "This is clearly prejudice," she said, tapping the complaint letter. "The rules never specified opposite sex only, and that anonymous tip smells like someone with a grudge. But the process would be long and draining," she warned, possibly stretching into months of hearings and appeals. Alex found himself questioning everything during the quiet nights that followed. Was their love worth this public scrutiny? James, usually the optimist who danced through life with easy confidence, started to pull away slightly, spending more time at the studio to avoid the stares from neighbors and former students. A close friend, Mike, who had been their biggest supporter during training, suddenly distanced himself after the news broke. Later, in a short text, he admitted he didn't want to be associated with the controversy at his conservative workplace. The betrayal stung deeper than Alex expected, deepening his sense of isolation. He spent hours staring at old photos of them practicing, remembering the laughter and the way James would correct his posture with gentle hands. Yet in the quiet moments, Alex remembered why he fell for James in the first place. The way his eyes lit up when they danced, the quiet strength he offered when Alex's family visits turned awkward. They decided to appeal, filing a lawsuit against the organization for discrimination. The court date was set for 3 months later. As they prepared statements and gathered evidence of their training logs, Alex's mother called, her voice hesitant over the phone. "Your father is worried about the family name back home," she said softly. Alex hung up feeling torn between his roots and the man he loved. James's embrace that evening reminded him they were in this together, but the pressure built with every local news segment labeling it the gay dance duo controversy. Friends from the dance community rallied with supportive messages, But the internal doubts lingered like shadows. Alex lay awake at night, wondering if fighting would change anything or just bring more pain. But deep down, he knew backing down would mean losing a part of himself he had fought so hard to accept. The first court hearing loomed, and with it, the possibility of having to hand back everything they had earned on that stage. The morning of the initial hearing arrived with gray Chicago skies matching Alex's mood. They dressed in simple suits, James adjusting Alex's tie with steady fingers in the mirror. "Whatever happens today, we walk out holding each other," James said, his voice low and reassuring. At the courthouse, reporters waited outside, microphones thrust forward. Alex kept his head down, focusing on James's hand in his as they pushed through the doors. Inside the wood-paneled room, the judge listened as Elena presented their case, arguing that the disqualification was based on bias rather than any rule violation. The organization's lawyer countered with claims of moral standards and sponsor expectations. Alex watched James's face tighten during the arguments, seeing the same man who had once taught him to trust the rhythm now facing a different kind of battle. By the end of the day, no decision was made, but the judge scheduled more sessions and ordered them to hold the title in escrow. As they left, Alex felt the first cracks in his resolve, but James's quiet, "I'm proud of us," kept him moving forward. The fight had only just begun, and the emotional toll was already reshaping how they saw each other and the world around them. Weeks blurred into a routine of strategy sessions and sleepless nights as the court case dragged on. Alex threw himself into work at the marketing firm, trying to lose himself in client pitches, but every email from Elena brought the reality crashing back. James continued teaching dance classes downtown, but enrollment dipped slightly as parents pulled their kids, citing the controversy. One evening after a particularly tense rehearsal, James came home quieter than usual, dropping his bag by the door and sinking onto the couch beside Alex. "A parent asked if I was still appropriate to teach," he said, staring at the floor. Alex reached for his hand, feeling the familiar calluses from years of guiding students. "We'll get past this," Alex replied, but his own voice lacked conviction. The misunderstanding between them grew subtly. James suggested maybe they should have kept their relationship private for the competition, while Alex insisted that hiding would have been a betrayal of who they were. The family pressure mounted when Alex's parents announced an unexpected visit from Iowa. His father, a retired farmer with strong traditional views, arrived stiff and silent, while his mother tried to smooth things over with homemade casseroles. Over dinner in their small kitchen, the conversation turned inevitably to the lawsuit. "Son, why drag this out in public?" his father asked, eyes fixed on his plate. "People are talking back home." Alex felt the old familiar knot in his chest, the one that had kept him closeted through high school. James sat beside him, offering silent support with a gentle touch under the table, but Alex could see the strain in his partner's posture. Later that night, after his parents left for their hotel, Alex and James argued for the first time in months. "Maybe they're right," Alex said in frustration. "Maybe this fight is tearing us apart more than the disqualification ever could." James's eyes flashed with hurt. "So you'd rather I pretend we're just friends? That's not the man I fell in love with." The words hung heavy, leading to a sleepless night where Alex replayed every step of their journey together. Flashbacks filled Alex's mind as he tossed and turned. Their first meeting at a community dance workshop 5 years earlier, when James had pulled him onto the floor with a laugh and shown him how to trust the music. The late-night talks where Alex finally opened up about his fears of disappointing his family. The way James had stood by him through coming out, holding space without pressure. Those memories clashed with the current reality of court filings and public judgment. The next morning, they reconciled over coffee on the balcony, James pulling Alex into a long hug. "I'm sorry for pushing," James whispered. "I just don't want us to lose ourselves." Alex nodded, feeling the emotional weight lift slightly. But the betrayal from Mike lingered too. When Mike finally called to apologize, admitting peer pressure had made him pull away. Alex accepted it, but the trust felt fractured. As the second hearing approached, Elena uncovered more evidence. Emails from organizers admitting the complaint came from a rival couple with known conservative ties. "This strengthens our case," she told them over video call. The news gave them hope, but it also exhausted them. Alex sacrificed a promotion at work to attend more meetings, while James cut back on private lessons to focus on their statements. Their friends in the LGBTQ community organized a small support rally outside the courthouse, holding signs that read, "Love wins" on the dance floor. Seeing the turnout warmed Alex's heart, reminding him they weren't alone. Yet internally, the crisis of identity deepened for Alex. He journaled late at night about feeling caught between worlds, the conservative upbringing that shaped him and the authentic life he had built with James. The hearing went better than expected, with the judge questioning the organization's vague clause, but no ruling came. As they walked out hand in hand, Alex felt a spark of determination return. The path ahead was uncertain, but facing it together was starting to feel like the only choice that made sense. The emotional growth was slow, like learning a new routine, but each step forward strengthened their bond in ways the trophy never could. The third hearing brought a turning point that neither Alex nor James had anticipated. In the packed courtroom, Elena presented witness statements from other competitors who confirmed the rules had never excluded same-sex pairs before. The organization's lawyer stumbled during cross-examination, admitting under pressure that sponsor pressure had influenced the decision. Alex sat beside James, heart pounding, watching the judge take notes with a furrowed brow. This case raises serious questions about discrimination in public competitions, the judge remarked before adjourning. Outside, reporters swarmed them again, but this time Alex spoke up clearly. "We danced as ourselves, and that's all that should matter." James stood tall beside him, their shoulders touching in quiet solidarity. Back home, the small victory fueled late-night planning sessions. They reviewed old videos of their winning routine, analyzing every moment where their connection had shone through. Alex's internal conflict eased slightly as he saw the pure joy in those frames, but new doubts crept in about the cost to their relationship. James began to question if pursuing the title was worth the strain on Alex's family ties. "Your dad hasn't called in weeks," James noted one evening while they cooked pasta together. Alex stirred the sauce, shoulders tense. "He's processing. Or maybe he's done." The misunderstanding escalated when James suggested dropping the suit to preserve peace, prompting Alex to snap, "You think I want to go back to hiding?" They didn't speak for hours after that, each retreating to separate rooms, the silence heavier than any argument. Family dynamics shifted unexpectedly when Alex's mother reached out alone. She met them for lunch at a quiet cafe near the lake, her eyes soft with regret. "Your father loves you, but he's stuck in his ways," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze Alex's hand. "Seeing you two in the news, it made me realize how much you've grown." The conversation opened old wounds but also planted seeds of understanding. James listened quietly, later telling Alex how much it meant to see that bridge forming. Yet the betrayal from Mike resurfaced when he showed up unannounced at their door one rainy afternoon, hat in hand. "I was wrong to bail," Mike admitted, voice cracking. "The studio needs you back, James. And Alex, I miss our friendship." They invited him in, the reconciliation awkward but genuine, reminding Alex that people could change too. As summer turned to fall, the emotional toll showed in small ways. Alex lost weight from stress, while James channeled energy into new choreography inspired by their struggle. They attended a local LGBTQ support group one evening, where other couples shared similar stories of public fights and private doubts. Listening to a man describe losing his job over his marriage strengthened Alex's resolve. "We're not alone in this," he told James on the walk home, the city lights reflecting in the river. James smiled for the first time in days. "And we're stronger because of it." The court scheduled the final ruling for early December, just before the holidays. Preparations intensified, with Elena warning them the judge might side with the organization to avoid setting precedent. Alex sacrificed sleep to help draft closing arguments, feeling the weight of every decision. But in the quiet moments, holding James close on the couch, he found clarity. Their love had survived the stage lights and now the courtroom glare. Whatever the outcome, it had forced them to confront truths they might never have faced otherwise. The growth was painful but real, turning two individuals into a team unbreakable by external forces. December arrived with biting Chicago winds that mirrored the tension in Alex and James's lives. The final hearing day dawned clear but cold, and they dressed carefully, James choosing the tie Alex had given him on their 3rd anniversary. In the courtroom, the atmosphere crackled as Elena delivered her closing statement, emphasizing how the disqualification had caused real harm to their careers and mental health. The organization's side argued tradition and sponsor rights, but the judge interrupted with pointed questions about fairness. Alex gripped James's hand under the table, feeling the pulse of shared anxiety and hope. When the gavel finally fell after hours of deliberation, the ruling hit like a punch. The court upheld the disqualification, citing the organization's private policy rights, and ordered Alex and James to return the title and prize money within 30 days. The walk out of the courthouse felt endless. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions, but Alex kept his eyes forward, James's arm around his shoulders providing the only anchor. "We fought hard," James said quietly once they reached the car. Alex nodded, but inside the loss cracked something open. Back in their apartment, the empty space where the trophy had sat symbolized everything. Alex paced the living room, anger mixing with grief. All that work, all that exposure, for nothing? James sat on the edge of the couch, head in hands. "Not for nothing." We stood up. The misunderstanding flared again when James suggested focusing on new goals, prompting Alex to accuse him of giving up too easily. They spent the night apart in silence, each processing the defeat in their own way. The next weeks tested them more than the lawsuit itself. Returning the title involved a formal ceremony they refused to attend, instead mailing the check and trophy with a statement to the press. Media coverage exploded, some outlets calling the ruling a setback for equality, others praising the court's respect for private rules. Alex's father called unexpectedly, his voice gruff but softer than before. "I'm proud you fought, son. Doesn't mean I agree, but I'm proud." The words landed like a balm on old wounds, opening a tentative dialogue that Alex had craved for years. James's family, always more supportive, hosted a quiet dinner where they toasted resilience rather than victory. Yet the internal crisis deepened for Alex as he questioned his identity in the wake of defeat. Was he defined by the fight or by the love that survived it? A key turning point came during a weekend getaway to a cabin up north, suggested by James to clear their heads. Snow fell softly outside as they sat by the fireplace, talking for hours about fears and dreams. "I was scared of losing you in all this," Alex confessed, voice breaking. James pulled him close. "You never could." The conversation healed the rifts, revealing how the ordeal had forced them both to grow. Alex learning to voice his needs, James learning patience with Alex's family ties. Back in Chicago, they channeled the energy into new projects. James started a free dance workshop for LGBTQ youth, while Alex used his marketing skills to promote it. Friends like Mike returned fully, helping organize the first class. The sacrifice of the title began to feel like a catalyst rather than an end. Public support poured in through emails and donations, turning their story into a quiet movement. Alex felt the awakening gradually, realizing that true strength came not from winning titles but from choosing authenticity every day. The court had taken the trophy, but it couldn't touch the bond they had forged through fire. With the title officially returned, life settled into a new rhythm that felt both familiar and transformed. Alex returned to his marketing job with fresh perspective, pitching campaigns that celebrated diversity instead of playing it safe. James's workshops filled quickly, young dancers finding confidence in the same steps that had once brought them victory. Yet the emotional aftershocks lingered. Alex caught himself replaying the courtroom moments during quiet commutes, wondering what if they had hidden their love from the start. James noticed and gently pulled him back. "That version of us wouldn't be real," he said one morning over breakfast, sliding a fresh cup of coffee across the table. Their conversations deepened, turning misunderstandings into opportunities for closeness. Family reconciliation progressed slowly but meaningfully. Alex's parents visited again for Thanksgiving, his father even asking tentative questions about the workshops. "Never thought I'd see my boy teaching kids to dance like that," he admitted over pie, a rare smile breaking through. Alex felt the old pressure lift, replaced by cautious hope. James's presence at the table, steady and warm, bridged the gap without forcing words. The betrayal from earlier friends faded as new connections formed in the community. One evening at a support group, Alex shared their story openly, voice steady for the first time. "We lost the title, but we found our voices." The group applauded, and James's proud gaze across the room sealed the moment. As winter deepened, they faced a new challenge when a rival dance studio offered James a head instructor position with one condition: keep a low profile on the lawsuit. James turned it down immediately, choosing instead to expand his own classes. "No more hiding," he told Alex later. Their hands linked on a snowy walk along the lakefront. The sacrifice hit their finances, but the freedom felt worth it. Alex supported the decision by taking freelance gigs, balancing spreadsheets late into the night while James planned curricula. The strain tested them, leading to one heated discussion about priorities, but they emerged stronger, learning to compromise without resentment. Alex's internal growth shone through as he organized a community fundraiser for the workshops, channeling the pain of the court loss into positive action. Spring brought renewal. They entered a smaller, inclusive dance festival as coaches rather than competitors, watching their students shine on stage. Seeing the next generation dance freely healed old wounds. In private moments, Alex and James revisited their original routine in the living room, laughter replacing the bitterness. "We still got it," James teased after a successful lift, pulling Alex into a spin. The romantic connection, always present but deepened by trials, became their anchor. Long talks about the future replaced doubts. Adopting a dog, maybe traveling to perform in safer spaces. The awakening was complete. The prejudice that had stripped their title had instead stripped away their fears, leaving space for authentic living. Friends and family noticed the change, commenting on how grounded they seemed. Alex realized the journey had been about more than a trophy. It was about claiming their place unapologetically. Summer returned to Chicago with humid days and long evenings that invited reflection. Alex and James sat on their balcony overlooking the city lights, the same spot where the lawsuit had once felt overwhelming. The workshops had grown into a nonprofit, funded partly by the outpouring of support after the ruling. Students performed at local pride events, their routines echoing the passion Alex and James had once shared on the national stage. "Look what we started," James said softly, his arm around Alex's shoulders. Alex leaned into him, the weight of the past year lifting like morning fog. The court had forced them to return the title, but in doing so, it had given them something priceless: a platform and a purpose. Misunderstandings and sacrifices faded into lessons learned. Alex's father sent a card for their anniversary, simple but sincere, acknowledging their life together. Mike became a regular volunteer at the studio, his redemption complete. The family, friendship, and societal pressures that once threatened to break them now wove into the fabric of their strength. One quiet evening, they danced their original routine in the empty studio after hours, the music filling the space with memories and hope. James led with the same gentle confidence, Alex following with newfound trust. In that moment, under the soft studio lights, they knew the real victory had never been about a trophy. As they locked up and walked home hand in hand through the bustling streets, Alex turned to James with a smile that reached his eyes. "We didn't lose anything that mattered." James kissed his temple, the city humming around them. Their journey had taken them through shock, conflict, betrayal, and awakening, shaping two men into partners unbreakable by any ruling. The prejudice that had started it all had ultimately revealed their deepest truths. True or false? Standing up for your authentic love against societal prejudice and legal setbacks always leads to greater personal growth. even if it means losing the prize you fought for?